What tonight's all about is, I guess, giving you guys some of the information that I've learned in the last 18 months about running, and some of it's been really quite surprising to me and has changed lots about the way I run and what I do. For those of you who don't know, I never was a runner. I played squash for about 15 years or so and played for quite a while professionally, and obviously there's a lot of running training that went into that. I did a lot of training through the Australian Institute of Sport and the South Australian Institute of Sport, and one of the things that never happened was I never was taught to run. I just ran, and I only did it. I did it begrudgingly, but I did it because it'd make me a better squash player. And it's only since I've kind of been within Vision that I've started to enjoy running long distances and really enjoy running for running's sake. And then a little while I came across some really interesting information that made me a lot faster and a lot less sore and definitely held me back in terms of no more injuries. There's no more injuries I had to deal with. So I thought, this is the kind of info everyone needs to know. So that's what tonight's all about. But one of the funny things that, I never really considered was that when anyone takes up a new sport or tries to get better at a sport, most people will spend countless hours working on their technique to get better at the sport. I mean, who here has done that with a sport? You've worked on your technique to get better. And the reason you work on your technique is because we know it makes a big difference in the way that you participate and how well you go. Yet, most runners, when they want to get better at running, do what? They run more. Or they run further, or they run harder. But that seems to be what people do without looking at technique and without looking at what's happening. And, there's some funny statistics around like the amount of people who take up running that get injured, which is really drastically high and a lot higher than it should be, because running's something we should be able to do. And so a lot of it comes back to getting technique right. So the big two outcomes that I want you guys to get out of today is obviously running efficiency. So being able to move more efficiently, and obviously the benefit of moving more efficiently is that you're going to be able to put in less effort to run the same speed and distance, or if you put in the same effort, you should be able to cover more distance at a greater speed. And then the other one is injury prevention. And I don't know about you guys, but who thinks injuries suck? Got some cripples down the back. But yeah, injuries really suck, and you shouldn't have to get injured whilst running, and there's plenty of people who go their whole lives without having any significant injuries. And injuries can come about through overuse and not using your body the way it should, or doing too many kilometers, or the only other injury that's probably the non-preventable one are impact injuries. So like if you're cycling along the side of a road and a car reverses out, you don't see it and you hit the car, that's an injury, and that happens to some people. So we want to make sure that you guys don't get any of the overtraining injuries or any of the training injuries that are completely preventable. And so I wanted to just introduce you guys to the single biggest mistake most runners make when they're out running, and it was the same thing that I had been doing for the last 30 years that was really making running a lot tougher than it should have been and was making me a lot sorer afterwards. And the single biggest mistake that most people make is where their foot strikes the ground in relation to their center of gravity. And that makes the biggest difference. So I'm going to get my artistic side on for a second for you guys. Get excited, because this will be good. I draw a pretty awesome stick man. So if that's our dude's foot, so if that's our guy running, when his foot strikes the ground, then as he's moving forward, and then as you're propelling off. And so what makes the biggest difference out of all of this is where your center of gravity is when your front foot hits the ground. Now, think about this logically, guys. If your center of gravity is back here and your foot's out there, then naturally your force is coming on this loop over this way and down that way. So effectively, what's this leg acting as in that movement? It's a brake. So as your foot's landing out there, it can't do anything but brake. So it's absorbing your body weight. Does anybody know, force-wise, how many multiples of your body weight are generally coming through your leg when you're running? 3 is when you're walking. Running can be up to 12 times body weight, depending on how hard you're running. So if you think about how much you weigh and then multiply the forces in there, that can be some serious force going through your body. And that's relying on this to be your brake. Now, then as you move, your leg has to then take energy and propel you upwards to get you over your center of gravity and then propel you forwards into the next stride. So you're using a lot of energy to land, pull up, balance, and then accelerate at each step along the way. Now, obviously, most of us land like that. And the reason I used to land like that is because that's just how I ran. Because when I was younger, if I wanted to run faster, you know what I got told? Take bigger steps. Has anyone ever thought of that? I want to run faster, take bigger steps. It makes sense, it's logical, right? You take bigger steps, you should go further. And as you reach out and you're taking bigger and bigger steps, you're having to brake, balance and accelerate more and more and more, and you're utilizing all that energy in your body. Is that push-ups? Oh, just 10 will be nice, thanks. Say answers onto it. Push-ups. And so what you're doing is you're therefore creating this environment where your front leg's got to take a lot of load, a lot of force, and you're missing out on utilizing what your body's naturally really, really good at. So I've got there the foot with the plantar fascia and the Achilles tendon in there, but this is our foot here. And one of the coolest things about your foot is of the 208 bones in your body, 56 of them exist in your foot, which is about a quarter of the bones in your entire body. So there's a lot in there. And as you can see, having so many bones means there's a lot of movement. And what keeps this movement together are all the ligaments in your feet. And if you think of your ligaments like elastic bands, what happens when you land on your forefoot is you get a whole lot of flex through these elastic bands. Now, when you pull an elastic band and stretch it, what's stored in that elastic band there? Energy stored in there. And then when you let it go, the energy's released. And so your body's designed to have this amazing energy storing and release mechanism that doesn't come from calories. It comes from the natural elastic energy in your feet. Now, if you land like I did for 30 years and like most people do on your heel, there's no elastic energy, but then where does the shock go? Goes straight into your ankle, straight up your tibia into your knee. Now, there's not a great amount of shock absorption in your knee. Does anyone know what the name of the thing is that's in your knee that absorbs the shock? Well, he doesn't have one anymore, but it's supposed to be your meniscus. You're supposed to have a meniscus there to absorb the shock. That's its job. And if you treat your knees poorly, you end up with none. And that's not a great place to be. I'll give you guys the tip. And then, because your meniscus is only a thin little pad and it doesn't absorb all the energy, then the energy runs up your femur into your hip and your lower back. And so generally, if you're finishing a long run and you're sore here, ITB, knee, patella, tibia, shin splint, ankle, there's a few people hanging their heads going, yeah, that's me all the time. Then you're probably putting too much shock through those body parts. Now, if you think about all the joints that are in your feet, when you land there, all the shock's absorbed, and you've got two really big elastic bands that are there designed to propel you forward. One's your plantar fascia, and then at the back, joining onto this bone, is your Achilles tendon. Now, if you spend all day sitting down, doing nothing, and then you go out for a run, and as you land like that and let your foot slap there. What is happening to that poor little plantar fascia there? It's taking a lot of force from the back first and being stretched out really quick, and then as you're landing out in front, your Achilles tendon's being shortened, and then you're expecting to lengthen and shorten it again. So it's doing double movement each time, and this is doing double movement each time. So you're taking two parts of your body that are designed to be elastic, doing everything in your power during the day to make them inelastic, and then expecting them to be super elastic when you run. Can everyone see how that's going to lead to some problems? And so rather than relying on shock, super elasticity out of these parts of your bones, you need to start relying on those parts of your body to do their job. And one of the interesting things, there's a really good book, if anyone's into reading crazy books about research and stuff, the book's called Bounce, and the guy was talking about what it takes to be a master of things, and he was going through the 10,000 hours theory, and he worked out that there's actually no genetic difference in any Africans, but particularly Kenyans. They don't do better on VO2 max tests, they don't do better on height limb ratios, they don't do better on any tests than any other population, yet they've produced more world champion long distance runners than any country in history. And the guy did some research and he went there, and what he found out is that the majority of these kids run on average 20 kilometres a day to and from school without shoes on. So in their life, they're racking up 10,000 hours of experience before their 16th birthday, and because they're doing it without shoes, they can't land on their heel because it'd freaking hurt too much, right? So these kids are learning amazing running technique for 10,000 hours before they're 16, before they even start professional training and do all that kind of stuff. So they're not superior athletes, they're just better trained with better technique. And it's funny, when you look at some of the better runners, that's what you start to see. So if you don't have shoes on to kind of move around, please barefoot this next little thing. But we're going to stand up and do a little activity just to get a little bit of a feeling for it. So I want everyone to stand up, please. Strip your shoes if you don't have good ones on. All right, we're going to just do a little play with working on using the elastic part of our body. So if everyone tries to just jump up and down with their legs straight, landing on their heels for me. So like this. Everyone try that for me. Not allowed to say the C word. Don't you do it, you'll hurt yourself. Does everyone feel the massive amounts of elasticity that you don't have? Now what I want everyone to do is we're going to do what's called an ankle bounce. So we're going to bounce on the balls of our feet, but I don't want you to flex your ankle at all. I want your ankle to stay still. So just doing this, and what I want you to really feel is I want you to feel the elasticity in your feet and your calves so you get a good little bounce going on. Should have worn your shoes. So if you get this bounce happening, that gives you a really good feel for what you're supposed to be going through. All right, you can pull up a seat again, guys. So to break that down, guys, the two big problems with landing out in front of your center of gravity is your braking, which is highly inefficient and also a lot more stressful on the body. So the trick then becomes you need to start putting your foot in line there. And look, the other thing, getting a little bit technical about striking out in front, is what it causes you to do is it causes you to raise and lower your base of gravity. So your hips have to raise up above this leg after striking. So rather than when you're running, it's pretty much the equivalent of running like that. Whereas if you watch, there's an amazing video, and I can't find it anywhere, but Brad Beer, the physio's got it, and it's a video of all the marathoners crossing the Golden Gate Bridge in the San Francisco Marathon, and it starts out with all the leaders, they look like this. No bounce whatsoever. And then as it gets slower and slower, it starts looking bouncier and bouncier until all the amateurs that are running 5-hour marathons are doing these ones all the way across the bridge. And it really highlights what goes on there. But, you think about it, if you had a car that had to keep, or a bicycle that had to keep raising and lowering its center of gravity with every rotation of its wheel, how fast are you going to be able to go? It's going to really be a hindrance. And so getting yourself a lot smoother rather than vertical displacement is what it's called, is spending energy getting vertical where you should be spending your energy getting forward. Does that make sense to everybody? Then the other part that plays a big part in improving your speed on top of improving your injury risk, or making your injury risk better, is the time that you spend physically on the ground, your contact time. Now, great runners spend less time in contact with the ground and more time in the air. Why would you want to spend more time in the air? It's easier, you go faster. And so the more time you spend on the ground, the more your legs have got to work to propel you forward and keep you going. And so there's another little drill that we're going to do in one quick second, but what you need to do to get the most out of your running is you need to spend as little time on the ground as possible. And when you're doing that, it's utilizing that elasticity in your feet to really keep you springing forward. So this next little drill is a really easy one. By the way, info-wise, I'm going to give you guys all the info and then we're going to have a crack at practicing some of this stuff and getting a feel for it. Is everyone cool with that? Because you need to feel it to really understand it. So with this little practice drill we're going to do the same thing as what we were doing before, except we're going to start picking our feet up. Now, when you pick your foot up, what I'd like to see from everyone is that when you're in contact with the ground, your other foot, your knee and your ankle are like this. So you don't want to be like this and you don't want to be like this. You want to have your ankle and your knee right in between your center of gravity. So it looks like that. Everyone got it? Really focus on the feeling in your foot and how much time you're spending on the ground. Let's get up and give it a try. All right, I feel like we need some music or a beat or something, but hey, we'll do what we need to do. So picking the feet up just on the spot. So you shouldn't be kicking your bum, your knees should be coming up a little bit. It's almost like your calves coming up to your hammies, and really focus on being light on your feet and feel that elasticity in your feet. When you get this right, you should be feeling really elastic and not spending hardly any time on the ground. Your pants shouldn't be falling down, Suzette. That's it. Both. Yeah, they're supposed to. I want knees a little bit forward and ankles back as well at the same time. You've got it, Suzette. Just bring your knees to there.
Like that.
That's it.
This is not how we're going to run.
Look at her, already coming up with problems. So that feeling that you need to get, all right, you can stop now. Hopefully you got a little bit of a puff up. Yeah. So ideally, guys, that should give you the feeling of when you're getting your running spot on, that's the position you should be in. Now, the problem with when you're running with having your ankles coming out this way is your hip flexors have then got to do a lot of work to get your foot back down. So you don't want to be picking it up too far, and at the same time, you don't want to be running like this. Otherwise, you look like you should be on a John Cleese video or something. So we want to make sure that you're getting that right. But what that drill is all about is getting that feeling in your feet. Now, one of the things that I'd suggest is the next time you go for a run, to try and get the feeling of this, is do those two drills before you start running. If people think you're a goose, it doesn't really matter because they're going to just be seeing the back of you the whole time anyway. So, hey, what difference is it going to make? And then the last big point with it that I want you guys to really get is the cadence, or how often your feet hit the ground, is another big point. This one's not so controversial. Everyone agrees on this who are fantastic runners. But ideally, your feet should hit the ground 180 times per minute, which is quite fast. Now, when you're doing 180 times per minute, what it causes you to do is take shorter steps. So you're not reaching out in front with each step, you're actually going to be landing directly under your center of gravity and propelling yourself forward really easily. Now, the difference between a slow runner and a fast runner is that they spend the same amount of time in the air. Even a runner with long legs or short legs, they spend the same amount of time in the air, but a faster runner will cover more distance in that time because they've got more velocity. So if everyone ran at 180 beats per minute, and despite being different limb lengths and different speeds, faster runners will still cover more distance. The dude in the front, the The black guy there is Gabriel Salesi, the greatest ever long distance runner. And his technique's amazingly efficient. So just to give you guys an idea, on the treadmill, our treadmills go up to level 20. Has anyone taken it that high, level 20 on a treadmill? It's pretty quick. So this guy finished a marathon in the equivalent of staying on the treadmill at level 22 for 2 hours and 3 minutes. That's how quick these guys are. It's unfathomable. And if you're not running in the actual marathon, I highly encourage you guys to go down to where the Main Beach Surf Club is and watch these guys come around the corner there, because they're dead set flogging it. It's really amazing to watch. But you'll see the faster runners, they look like they're striding this massive difference, but you watch every time they'll be landing directly under their center of gravity and propelling themselves forward. Does that make sense to everyone? And so the difficult part is if you've spent 30 years or 40 years training your body to land heel first in a run, it's not going to be a flick the switch and all of a sudden I can do the new thing. It took me a little bit of time to get it, but the rewards are really good. A couple of years back, I ran the marathon with Tron before we knew he had no meniscus, and don't ask me. Anyway, we ran the marathon and we had some cramping issues and some pain issues and some bursum issues. And anyway, it took us a long time to finish the marathon in the end. We was tracking pretty well till about halfway. And the next day, well, even after the marathon, we went back to the place we were staying. There's like a hot tub and I'm like getting back there like this because my hips were killing me. My knees were aching and my feet were just so sore. And the next day I was really, really sore. And I did all the right rehab stuff. I got in the ice and I stretched and I did some squats and I did all the stuff to get the blood back through. And the Wednesday afterwards, I decided I was going to test it out and go for a bit of a run. Before that, I'd done the 15 Ks at Runaway Bay and I averaged 5-minute Ks the whole way and I was pretty stuffed at the end and I thought that was pretty decent. And so I ran from here to my friend's place at Palm Beach because I was going to watch the State of Origin at Palm Beach and I wanted to have a few drinks after my long marathon week. And when I got there, I timed myself on my phone. I picked up the phone and my average time down there was 4 minutes 30 and I did 4 minutes 17 for the first 15 Ks of that. And I wasn't checking time, I was just practicing this running technique. And I just naturally ran almost a minute per kilometre faster for the majority of it. And it made a massive difference. And it felt easy, but at the same time, when you first try this, because your feet are striking the ground a lot more often, you're going to be a little bit more puffed to begin with. You'll find yourself, we're going to do a drill in a second, and you'll find yourself puffing pretty heavy, and you're like, geez, this is much harder. All it is your body's just got to get used to operating at a little bit of a faster rate. You've got the base fitness if you've been running. You'll be able to make it happen. So here's the way our little drill's going to go. Dean, you're the only one who's dressed, so it's going to have to be you. Come stand up here. What I want you guys to do is you're going to do this with a partner. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Dean to do the exact same thing we were doing on that last one, picking the feet up, and then I'm going to get him to lean forward and I'm going to provide resistance and he's going to push me backwards till about halfway and then I'm going to let him, don't run into the desk or anything, dude, but I'm going to let him run forward. And what this is designed to do is to give you a real feel for exactly how you put all this together. So if you start running your feet up and down on the spot, all right, now lean into me and push me back, faster on the feet. And so when you do this a couple of times, push in a little bit harder and a little bit quicker with the feet. Faster, 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 faster. And so by doing that, there you go, he couldn't pull up, he's too fast. Thank you, Dean. By doing this a couple of times, I want you guys to give it a bit of a try. We'll move the chairs out of the way so everyone can have a bit of a play with it. But I want you to really feel for how you're doing it. So just start off with that, picking your feet up, and just make sure you're hitting that quite quick, and then lean in